I never thought I'd be the kind of person who cries at a retirement party, but there I was, standing in the corner of the grand ballroom at the Marriott, holding a glass of champagne I hadn't touched, watching Miles give his speech, and feeling my eyes burn with tears I was desperately trying to hold back. I'm Reed, by the way, and this is the story of how I went from being the guy who thought love was something that happened to other people, to being introduced as the one in front of 200 colleagues, friends and family members who didn't even know I existed until that moment. It started 18 months ago on the most unremarkable Tuesday morning you could imagine. I was 29, working as a junior architect at Morrison & Associates, drowning in student loans and surviving on coffee and the occasional decent takeout when I remembered to eat. Miles was the senior partner everyone respected. This 52-year-old man with silver threading through his dark hair and these ridiculous reading glasses he'd peer over when he was reviewing blueprints. I'd been at the firm for 3 years, and our interactions consisted of him nodding at my work in meetings and me trying not to stammer when he asked me direct questions. That Tuesday, I was working late, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was that everyone else had gone home. I was alone in the office, or so I thought, hunched over my desk with my third energy drink of the day, trying to fix a design flaw in a commercial project that was due the next morning. I didn't hear him approach. I just suddenly became aware of someone standing behind me, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. It was Miles, jacket off, tie loosened, looking at my computer screen with this expression of intense concentration. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't mean to startle you. I saw your light on from my office. That's the Riverside project, isn't it?" It wasn't a question. I nodded, suddenly very aware that my hair was a mess, and I probably smelled like desperation and Red Bull. "You're stuck on the load distribution for the mezzanine level," he said, still looking at the screen. "How did you know?" I asked. He smiled, and it transformed his entire face from intimidating senior partner to something warm and approachable. "Because I got stuck on the exact same thing when I reviewed it last week," he said. "Come on, let's figure it out together." We worked side by side for 3 hours that night. Miles pulled up a chair, rolled up his sleeves, and we went through the design line by line. He didn't talk down to me or make me feel stupid for missing things. Instead, he asked questions that made me think, suggested alternatives, and when I came up with a solution that worked, he looked at me with genuine pride and said, "That's brilliant, Reed. I wouldn't have thought of that approach." By the time we finished, it was past midnight. We were both exhausted, but there was this energy between us, this connection I'd never felt with anyone before. "Want to grab some food?" he asked as we packed up. "I know a diner that's open 24 hours. It's not fancy, but the pancakes are decent." I should have said no. I should have recognized that my heart was beating too fast and my hands were shaking, for reasons that had nothing to do with caffeine. Instead, I said yes. The diner was this old-school place with cracked vinyl booths and a waitress who called everyone honey. We ordered pancakes and coffee and we talked. Not about work, not about architecture, but about real things. He told me about his divorce 5 years ago, how his ex-wife was a wonderful person, but they'd grown apart, wanted different things. He told me about his daughter, who was studying marine biology in California, how proud he was of her, how much he missed her. He asked about my life, and I found myself telling him things I never told anyone. About growing up in a small town in Ohio where being different meant being invisible. About how I'd known I was gay since I was 14 but didn't come out until college. About how I'd moved to the city to escape and reinvent myself, but sometimes I still felt like that scared kid from Ohio. "You're not that kid anymore," Miles said, looking at me across the table with those steady grey eyes. "You're talented and brave, and you're building something real here." I wanted to tell him that I didn't feel brave at all, that sitting across from him made me feel more vulnerable than I'd ever felt, but I just nodded and changed the subject. That night became a pattern. We'd work late together, not every night, but often enough that I started looking forward to Tuesdays and Thursdays when I knew he'd be in the office past 7. We'd grab dinner after, sometimes at the diner, sometimes at this Thai place near his apartment, sometimes just picking up sandwiches and eating in the conference room while we talked about everything and nothing. I learned that he loved old movies, especially film noir, that he'd wanted to be a pianist when he was young but wasn't good enough to make it professionally, that he ran every morning at 6, rain or shine, because it was the only time his mind was truly quiet. I fell in love with him slowly, the way you fall asleep gradually and then all at once. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was in the way he remembered how I took my coffee. The way he'd touch my shoulder when he was looking at my work, this brief contact that sent electricity through my entire body. The way he laughed at my terrible jokes and challenged my ideas and made me feel seen in a way I'd never experienced before. The problem was, Miles was my boss. He was 23 years older than me, and I had absolutely no idea if he was even interested in men, let alone interested in me. For all I knew, our dinners and late-night conversations were just him being a good mentor, taking an interest in a junior colleague's development. The thought of misreading the situation, of making things awkward, of losing what we had, terrified me more than staying silent. Everything changed 6 months into our friendship. We were at a client dinner, one of those stuffy affairs where you have to make small talk and pretend to enjoy overpriced wine. Miles was across the table from me, and I was next to this guy named Derek from the client's team who spent the entire meal hitting on me. He wasn't subtle about it. Hand on my arm, leaning in too close, asking if I wanted to continue the conversation somewhere more private after dinner. I was polite but firm in deflecting, but Derek wasn't taking the hint. I noticed Miles watching us, his jaw tight, his knuckles white around his wine glass. When Derek excused himself to take a call, Miles leaned across the table and said quietly, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, "just a little uncomfortable." "We can leave," Miles said immediately. "I'll make an excuse. We don't have to stay." The protectiveness in his voice, the concern in his eyes made my heart ache. "I'm okay," I promised, "but thank you." After dinner, Miles insisted on walking me home, even though it was out of his way. We walked in silence for a few blocks before he said, "I'm sorry about Derek. Some people don't understand boundaries." "It's fine," I said. "I'm used to it." "You shouldn't have to be," Miles said, and there was something fierce in his voice that made me stop walking and look at him. The streetlight cast shadows across his face, and I could see the tension there, the barely controlled emotion. "Read," he said, and then stopped, started again. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to know that if this makes you uncomfortable, we can pretend I never said it, and everything can go back to exactly how it was. But I can't keep pretending that these dinners and late nights are just about work or mentorship or friendship. They're not for me, not anymore." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "What are you saying?" I asked, even though I knew, even though I hoped, even though I was terrified of being wrong. "I'm saying that I look forward to Tuesdays and Thursdays more than anything else in my week," he said. "I'm saying that I think about you constantly. That when you smile at something I've said, I feel like I've won the lottery. That watching Derek touch you tonight made me want to throw professional courtesy out the window and tell him to back off because you're mine, except you're not mine. You're your own person, and I have no right to feel that way, but I do. I'm saying that I'm falling in love with you, Reed, and I needed you to know even if it ruins everything." I kissed him, right there on the sidewalk on Fifth Avenue with people walking past us and the city noise all around us. I kissed him. I'd never kissed anyone like that before, with my whole heart, with everything I'd been holding back for 6 months pouring out in that one moment. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard, and Miles was looking at me with wonder and disbelief and joy. "I've been in love with you since the night we fixed the Riverside project," I told him. "I just didn't think you could ever feel the same way." "Oh, Reed," he said, pulling me close again. "I've been fighting this feeling since the first time I saw you present in a meeting and watched you defend your design with such passion and intelligence. I told myself you were too young, that I was your boss, that it was inappropriate, but my heart didn't care about any of those very logical reasons." We talked for hours that night, sitting on the steps of my apartment building, working through the complicated reality of what we were starting. Miles was adamant that we had to be careful at work, that we couldn't let our relationship affect the professional environment, or put me in a position where anyone could accuse me of advancing because of favoritism. I understood, even though part of me wanted to shout from the rooftops that Miles Carter loved me. We kept it quiet for a year. We were discreet at the office, professional, careful not to show any favoritism or special treatment. But outside of work, we built a life together. I met his daughter Emma when she came home for Christmas, and after an initial wariness, she pulled me aside and told me she hadn't seen her dad this happy in years. Miles met my parents over video call, and my mom cried happy tears and told me she'd been worried I'd never let anyone in. We fell into routines and rituals, Saturday morning runs together, even though I hated running, and he found it hilarious how much I complained. Sunday afternoons at the art museum, wandering through galleries and arguing about modern art. Weeknight dinners where we'd cook together, Miles teaching me techniques he'd learned from years of being single and having to feed himself. The age difference that had seemed so significant at first faded into irrelevance. Yes, Miles remembered the 80s, and I didn't. Yes, I had to explain TikTok to him, and he had to explain why vinyl records were making a comeback. But we met each other in the middle, in the things that mattered. We wanted the same things. Quiet evenings at home, deep conversations, someone to share the small moments with, someone who saw us completely and loved us anyway. 6 months ago, Miles told me he was planning to retire. He was 53, he'd been working for 30 years, and he wanted to spend his time differently. Travel, he said. Write that book about sustainable architecture he'd been planning for a decade. Maybe learn to play piano again. And spend time with you, he added, without having to worry about professional boundaries and office politics. What do you think about us being public, he asked. Really public. I want to stop hiding what we are. I want to introduce you to everyone who matters as my partner, my love, the person I'm building my future with. I was terrified and thrilled in equal measure. Yes, I said. Yes to all of it. The retirement party was tonight. Miles had been planning it for months and I'd helped, secretly amused that I was organising a party where I'd be attending as just another colleague. The firm had rented out the ballroom, invited clients and partners and associates past and present. It was a big deal. Miles had been with Morrison & Associates for 25 years, had built the firm into what it was today. People flew in from other states to attend. I got there early, helped with last-minute details, then tried to blend into the background as people arrived. Emma was there, and she gave me a knowing smile and a hug. "You nervous?" she whispered. "Terrified," I admitted. "Don't be," she said. "Dad's got this, and everyone's going to love you." The evening progressed with the usual retirement party beats. Cocktails and appetizers, people sharing stories and laughing, a slideshow of Miles's career highlights. Then it was time for speeches. The founding partner went first, talking about Miles's contributions and leadership. A few longtime colleagues shared anecdotes, and then Miles stepped up to the microphone. He talked about his career, about the projects he was proud of, about the team he'd built. He thanked people by name, made jokes that landed, was gracious and humble and everything you'd expect. And then his tone shifted, became more personal. "I want to talk about what's next," he said. "Retirement isn't an ending, it's a beginning. It's a chance to focus on what truly matters. And what matters most to me is spending time with the people I love. My daughter Emma, who's here tonight and who I'm so incredibly proud of. And someone else, someone who's become the centre of my world over the past 18 months. I felt my stomach drop. This was it. Miles's eyes found me in the crowd and he smiled. That warm smile that was just for me. "Reed Donovan, would you come up here please?" he said into the microphone. The room went silent. Every head turned to look at me. I felt frozen, but Emma gave me a gentle push, and somehow my feet started moving. I walked through the crowd to the front, my heart pounding, very aware of the confused whispers starting around me. When I reached Miles, he took my hand, right there in front of everyone, and held it firmly. "For those of you who don't know," Miles said, "this is Reed. He's an incredibly talented architect. He's kind and funny and patient with my complete inability to understand social media, and he's the love of my life. We've been together for 18 months and I've kept that private because of professional concerns and because I wanted to protect Reed from any appearance of favoritism. But I'm done hiding. Reed is the reason I'm excited about retirement, about the future, about waking up every morning. He's the one, and I wanted all of you, everyone who's been important to my career and my life, to know that." The room was absolutely silent. I could feel 200 pairs of eyes on us. And then Emma started clapping, loud and enthusiastic, and within seconds the entire room erupted in applause. People were cheering, smiling, some wiping away tears. Miles turned to me, still holding my hand, and said quietly, just for me to hear, "Was that okay?" I nodded, not trusting my voice, and he pulled me into a hug while the applause continued around us. The rest of the evening was a blur of congratulations and introductions and questions. People were kind, genuinely happy for us. A few colleagues admitted they'd suspected something. Several told stories about noticing the way Miles looked at me in meetings. Emma gave a speech about how she'd never seen her father this happy, how she'd been hoping he'd find someone who made him smile the way I did. The founding partner pulled me aside and told me that my work spoke for itself, that I'd earned my place at the firm regardless of my relationship with Miles, and that he hoped I'd stay on even with Miles retiring. Now it's past midnight and we're back at Miles's apartment. My apartment too now, I guess, since I've been staying here more nights than not. We're on the couch, shoes off, ties discarded, my head on his shoulder and his arm around me. "How are you feeling?" he asks. Overwhelmed, I admit. Happy. Relieved. Still a little terrified. He kisses the top of my head. "I meant what I said up there," he tells me. "You're the one, Reed. You're it for me." "I know," I say. And I do know. I feel it in every moment we're together, in the way he knows when I need coffee and when I need silence, in the way he challenges me to be better while loving me exactly as I am. "You're it for me too," I tell him. "I didn't know I was looking for this for you, but now I can't imagine my life any other way." We sit in comfortable silence, and I think about how much has changed since that Tuesday night, 18 months ago, when Miles startled me at my desk. I think about all the moments between then and now, the small intimacies and quiet revelations that built into this overwhelming love. I think about how scared I was of ruining everything by admitting my feelings, and how glad I am that Miles was braver than me that night on Fifth Avenue. Tomorrow Miles officially retires. We're taking a month off to travel, just the two of us, no work emails or deadlines. After that, we'll figure out what our new normal looks like, me still at the firm and him pursuing his projects, but coming home to each other every night without having to hide or be careful. The thought fills me with a joy so intense it almost hurts. Miles shifts beside me and I look up at him. "Thank you," I say. "For what?" he asks. "For being brave enough to say something that night," I tell him. "For loving me. For introducing me as the one tonight. For making me feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." "Reed," he says, his hand cupping my face. "I'm the lucky one. You make everything better, brighter, more meaningful. I love you. I love you too," I say, and I kiss him, soft and slow and full of promise. This is my life now. This is my love story. And it's better than anything I could have imagined.